The Center for Audit Quality presents Profession in Focus.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of Profession in Focus. I'm Cindy Fernelli, and I'm very pleased to have as our guest today Brian Anderson, who, among other things, is one of the CAQ's public board members. So, Brian, it's great to have you on our board, and great to have you here today.
Thank you.
Well, Brian brings an incredible array and experience to the CAQ's board. You're a CPA, you practice in an auditing firm, you're a former CFO, and of course now you sit on public companies. You're on the board of directors of 3 public companies and indeed on the audit committee. So we're really thrilled to have that wealth of experience at the CAQ. So I want to start by asking you, how do you view the state of audit quality today? How do you think we're doing as a profession?
Yes, Cindy, I think today the state of audit quality is very good, and I'll speak mainly from the perspective as an audit committee chair on several public companies, as you mentioned. I think today, especially compared to several years ago, audit committees are much more engaged with the external auditors, with internal audit, and with the company's financial management, with a very, very strong focus on internal controls. And I think that's really as a result of the professions and the PCAOB's emphasis on enhancing the control environment of public companies. So we spend a lot more time with our companies as audit committees, really understanding the critical control systems and the critical applications, the controls around those applications, and the results of the SOX testing and how those results trend over time. I also think that most audit committees today have a much better understanding of their company's critical accounting policies and the judgments that go into that, and have really good dialogue with management and the external and internal auditors regarding those accounting policies. We spend a lot of time challenging management on the appropriateness and the relevancy of non-GAAP adjustments to the results to just ensure that they really do make sense. And I think finally we have a responsibility to ensure that we really understand the basis for management's guidance to the street, because that really underpins a lot of the credibility and financial reporting. So, you know, I think in summary, when you look at the significant decline in restatements, the fact that, knock on wood, we've had no major financial frauds, I would say that, you know, the quality is high, and I think that only enhances the confidence in the global capital markets.
Well, everybody working together and upping their game,
absolutely,
I think, has really paid off in the last several years.
You know, I think, you know, a couple areas for improvement, perhaps, and focus going forward. I think clearly auditors need to be much more skilled at big data and analytics, and to bring that skill set to the table, particularly for very large companies with sophisticated information system environments. And of course cyber, which is just a very significant, pervasive and increasing threat. So ensuring that we have really strong and bulletproof controls around that risk is increasingly significant and important. And I think that both companies, as well as the public accounting profession, can bring the right skills to bear to address that significant risk to many companies going forward.
Good advice that we all need to pay attention to. Let me shift gears a little bit and talk about diversity. So again, using your hat, your director's hat, that's something that the SEC's been focused on. Former chair Mary Jo Wright said that the diversity on public companies is unacceptable and has called for companies to voluntarily up their game. How do you see the diversity effort? Are we making strides, or are we making progress,
Yeah.
or is it still a bit of a depressing area?
Well, I wouldn't say depressing, but you aren't far off. I think Mary Jo is absolutely right, and the data supports that we aren't making much progress. I view diversity somewhat similar to continuous improvement, that many companies embark on. It's more about the journey and less about the destination. It's really, in my view, a marathon and not a sprint. So progress is going to come slow. It may come in fits and starts. I do think that big institutional investors who are shareholders in major companies can play a greater role in making demands for more diversity on corporate boards. And I think they should do that, and they should also vote their shares in that manner. I do think that this is a significant underutilized bully pulpit on this topic. And I think it's more appropriate for share owners to make these demands than regulators. I think we should really respond to the will of our owners. Obviously, I think that a diverse board does a much better job of holding management and the CEO specifically to building a diverse and inclusive team to run and lead the company. So, it really does start with the board to really drive diversity throughout the entire enterprise. But, this will be a long journey.
Well, you spoke about major shareholders and what shareholders want and what they can demand. We hear a lot about stakeholder engagement, shareholder engagement, and the importance of that. In the boardroom, do you talk about that a lot, or do you have unique ways that you try to satisfy the hunger for more engagement with stakeholders?
Yeah, I think, in my experience, most well-run companies, and even some that are not so well-run, do a pretty good job with the CEO and the CFO being reasonably engaged with analysts and shareholders, both buy side and sell side. So I think that outreach generally works well. I think having said that, there's definitely room for opportunity to improve with the board itself. I do think it's important for non-executive chairs or lead directors to directly engage, perhaps using the investor relations function in their companies to facilitate a direct dialogue with share owners, at least annually. I also think it would be appropriate for committee chairs to participate in some of these discussions to both ensure that the share owners have a good understanding of what the committees actually do, and also provides a forum for the board to hear directly from the owners of the company. I think most good boards also find a mechanism to do an annual survey of their major investors and shareholders to just fully understand their degree of satisfaction with management and, frankly, the performance of the board. Too often, communication with the board these days only occurs when there's a crisis, and that's not the way to go. I think having a strategy and an ongoing process to facilitate frequent and continuous dialogue makes a lot of sense.
And of course, the company's disclosure, the proxy and the audit committee report is another critical way that boards can communicate with all shareholders or share owners, not just the largest institutional shareholders.
Agreed. Yeah.
So, as you know, we follow that with our barometer. So
absolutely.
We're hoping to see continuous improvement there. One last question I want to ask you about, and you touched on it earlier when you talked about how the firms and companies need to up their game on data analytics, artificial intelligence, digitization. And I think that's something that, as you know, we're very focused on at the CAQ, telling young people about the opportunities. What advice would you give to a high school or a young college student who was considering a career in public company accounting and auditing?
Well, I think my own career is very instructive. I really believe that public accounting continues to be one of the best environments to prepare yourself for a long and successful career. I think that, large as well as small public accounting firms offer exciting opportunities among, a diverse set of areas, from auditing, tax, systems work, analytics, forensics, information systems, consulting, etc. And I have found that public accounting is the best place to gain significant leadership experience, significant ability to manage projects effectively, enhance your teamwork skills, and really just learn to get things done in an organized manner. I think you really learn through inquisitiveness and inquiry, and I think that I can think of really very few professions where you get really awesome responsibility very early in your career. It isn't long after you join a major public accounting firm that, within 3 years or so, you're an audit senior leading a major engagement and having really significant responsibility. So I just think it's really an exciting career for really good and rapid growth and advancement. And it's a career that long-term, if you stay in the profession, it's very rewarding. And if you leave the profession, the direct business of auditing, it's also just a fantastic foundation for a career in business. So I recommend it highly, and I think now is a phenomenal time to be joining the profession with the number of challenges and opportunities that we face. And the surveys that the CAQ does very regularly demonstrate that public accounting is clearly, one of the most well-respected professions, and we've got a lot going for us, and that leads to investor confidence in our capital markets.
Well, it is an exciting time. There are a lot of opportunities and challenges, and we're so thrilled that you will be with us and guiding us on our board as we undertake those challenges. So thank you for that. Mm-hmm. And I want to thank all of you for joining this edition of Profession in Focus.